Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Williamsburg City Council meeting of March 12th. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mayor Pons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Ms. Kernshire.
Here.
Okay, thank you. In our packets, we have the several meeting minutes. If there are no corrections or adjustment, would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
So I move that City Council approve minutes from the work session on February the 9th, business meeting on February the 12th, budget retreat on February the 13th, and special called meeting on February the 25th.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay, we have no matters of special privilege, which will lead us right into public hearings. First is the consideration and action to amendment to the Cox Communication Franchise Agreement dated May 12th, 2011, to authorize an additional 5-year extension. Ms. Shelton.
So the Cox franchise agreement is a 15-year total agreement that ends in May. Cable providers can request parity with other cable providers, and Chantel has essentially the same agreement with Cox. Cox has requested that instead of negotiating a new franchise agreement, the City Council authorize a 5-year extension to their existing franchise agreements. Franchise agreements can be for as long as 40 years, and so this is well within that period of time.
Questions for the city attorney?
Questions?
With that, I'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to come speak to this matter, please do so. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and I'll come back to council for consideration. For me, it's like an easy thing to do, just, extending this franchise agreement and obviously continue to allow another service provider to continue to operate in the city, so I can support this.
Yeah. Same.
Same?
Yeah, same.
Somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the interim city manager to execute an amendment to the Cox franchise agreement to include a second 5-year extension.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay, leads us now into reports, and first we have our monthly financial statement. Ms. Dameron, welcome.
Good afternoon. We're going to start with our sales tax, and February sales tax reports on December sales, and so for December 2025, sales tax revenue was about the same as December 2024. However, I would not say that we had a flat holiday season, as the sales tax revenue that we reported on in January for November of 2025 increased 16.5% compared to November of 24. So maybe people did their shopping a bit earlier. The year-to-date sales tax revenue is at 54% of budget and is a 4% increase over last year. Our room tax is at 55% of the budget, a 14.65% increase over last year. And as I've indicated in prior months, the room tax and the $2 lodging tax both include some delinquent collections. And while I've not been able to segregate 100% of the delinquent collections, I have gotten the majority of it. Unfortunately, we have not yet been able to separate room and $2. But the two combined delinquencies that are wrapped up in our current year numbers are $210,000. And then the meals tax is at 51% of budget and is slightly over 1% increase compared to last year. Our tourism taxes, the $2 lodging tax year-to-date is at 58% of budget and represents almost a 25% increase over last year. And as I had mentioned on the previous slide, there are some delinquent collections mixed up in this number, so it doesn't actually 100% represent activity in the current year. The historic sales tax is at 55% of budget and is a 5.8% increase over last year. Our real estate tax revenue remains at 51% of budget, which is exactly where we were last month. But we have collected another $21,500 in February, and resulting in a 4.6% increase over last year. Our personal property tax collections are at 89% of the budget, and we've realized an additional $96,000 collected in February, resulting in a 26% increase over last year. And then business property is at 96% of the budget, representing a 7% increase over last year, with an additional $153,000 collected in February. Just a couple of other comments that I had regarding revenues. Our business, professional, and occupation license tax revenue year-to-date is at $1.1 million, or 34% of budget, compared to $589,000, or 19% of budget last year. It's a notable increase. Doesn't necessarily at this point mean that we're going to exceed budget. We will see. That revenue stream's not due until March 1st, so next month's report, we'll see where we stand. It could just indicate that businesses are paying a bit earlier this year. Also, the recordation tax year-to-date is $274,000, or 91% of the budget, compared to $176,000 last year, or 47% of the budget. And then I wanted to note that our general fund expenditures are trending in line with budget and are at 63% of budget, about where we would expect to be at this point in time. And the utility revenue and expenses are both trending in line with budget. And that concludes my report. I'm going to address any questions that you may have.
I don't have any questions. Mr. Vice Mayor, anything?
No questions, thank you.
Nope, none for me, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tamron. Monthly departmental operating report. Ms. DeWitt, do we have anybody in the barrel today?
We do, Mr. Mayor. Wendy Evans, our Director of Human Services, will provide the report this month.
Welcome, Ms. Evans.
Okay, well, I'm happy to be here this afternoon. I'm pleased to talk to you a little bit about our outreach services and our community division. You all know we have a social services division, which houses our social work and benefit programs. So our community division has our local programs, outreach, homeless services, and our grant programs. So, as you remember, in May of 2025, we launched our HOPE initiative. This was a partnership with the police department, since they're often the ones that are identifying people in our community that are unsheltered. So we put our heads together and we started this HOPE initiative. As you can see, we got some coverage, media coverage, which prompted us to get a lot of good feedback from our community members, callers, wanting to get involved and be, to donate and just to get involved in that, in our outreach. So we were very happy with that. At first, we had Colonial Behavioral Health and House of Mercy as partners, but they've since stepped back. So Roy Girardi is our employee who continues to go out there with his backpack on a weekly basis, talk with folks, offer resources, and just assess what's going on out there. And so, that finding housing for people is not that easy, or we would, be millionaires and in homelessness. But it takes a long time, and people face a lot of barriers through that. So some of the numbers we've seen since July. So Roy has engaged with over 50 individuals. Each of them had their individual stories and challenges. I'm sorry, this is going one at a time there. Many cycle in and out of homelessness, so motels or staying on people's couches. So we're not sure. Some have obviously moved out of the area, or we just don't know kind of where they are right now. But we do know that we've moved 4 individuals into actual lease housing, rental housing. And we were able to assist 5 other enter a substance use treatment program, and that, as you know, takes a long time to do that process of getting into that type of housing. And so in addition to finding housing, Mr. Girardi helps with practical things like applying for benefits, Social Security, or just obtaining identification or a birth certificate. And so those small steps lead to eventual stability. So for one example, I'll give you, he was working with a gentleman who was living in the woods and working at a local restaurant, but not getting enough hours, so not able to afford a motel. So he was applying for a position for a large local business, and so we were able to cover a couple days in a motel for him to prepare for the interview. He landed the job, and we worked with our local churches, and he was able to maintain in a motel for a few weeks, and then we were able to find a room to lease, since that was a definitely more affordable option than trying to maintain in a motel. So he is in a room to lease and working still and maintaining that housing, so we were really proud of that success story. So with our HOPE initiative, changing this model of the in-person, having people come into the office to actually going out and talking to them on the street, we've really changed our relationship and helped us prompt new initiatives. By building those relationships, more people are coming into the office just to check in or to follow up with us. Previously, they may not have seen the value to that or intimidated by coming into an office. So since we've developed those relationships on the street, they're now coming in. And so Brandy Ponce works at our front office, and so she came to me with an idea and said, hey, I'm seeing a lot more people come in. Can I start this Maytree mission and put together hygiene kits to give out at our front window to those that need it? And so I said, sure, go ahead. So since the middle of January, she's been collecting donations, putting these kits together, and handing them out. So it's been a real success. The other challenge we were seeing was that we were seeing individuals that we were working with get incarcerated for failing to show to a court hearing. So these may be simple charges that occurred. The court sets these court hearings out for months in advance, and then they don't show because they are not following, they don't have a calendar to schedule these. So they're getting reincarcerated, which obviously delayed our progress. So we connected with the clerk's office, and we get copies of the upcoming court docket, and so we can review those dockets, see if we know anyone on that list, reach out to them, locate them, make sure they know about the hearing, and address any transportation challenges to get them to the hearing to hopefully avoid any incarcerations. The third initiative that came out of our street outreach was this HopeLink program. So Mr. Girardi was setting up appointments and following up with individuals by putting Post-it notes on their tents to tell them to come into the office. And so we worked with the IT department to repurpose our old city phones that we've upgraded that were sitting on the shelf, and T-Mobile has provided the cellular service, and so we're able to give out a few phones to people that we are working with so that we can communicate, coordinate appointments, and it's way more effective than the Post-it note on the tent process. So we're happy with that. So I'm going to shift a little bit down to our other continuum of helping individuals that are housed or try to find permanent housing. And so we have two employees, Chris Conley and Ed Schneider, who work daily with families coming in seeking emergency assistance. So this year we've had a TANF grant to cover some of the employment services, some of the housing costs. And so we also have amazing partnerships with our faith-based ministries and nonprofits to do this work. So we're deeply grateful for Bruton Parish, United Methodist, the Agape ministry we work with every day, and also memorial funds like Josh's Gift of Grace and the Hollis Jennings Foundation. So those are other organizations that help this effort of finding housing for individuals. So since July, our team has met with 153 families. So we were able to provide assistance and prevent eviction for 28 of those families. And as you know, once you get evicted, it's very hard to find future housing, and obviously the trauma around that as well. In addition to that, we were able to assist 39 families move into permanent housing. So this is a process. It often takes weeks or months to apply for a lease and then go through the process of pulling together resources to cover the security deposit and first month's rent. So we were really happy to be able to prevent eviction, but also find permanent housing for all these families. So what's next for our team? Unfortunately, we are losing the TANF grant. So we will just focus on our city families and the resources we have and our partnerships. Again, we need to engage with our partners to help us do this work. And then we are in the process of developing a new housing program. We have our transitional housing program with the Salvation Army for families, but we've seen a real gap for single adults. And so we're working on that and engaging partners to help us with that work. And about a year ago, I started this housing collaborative. It's a regional collaborative where we come together every month and just problem solve, what we're seeing on the street and new ideas of how we can work together to really leverage state and federal resources first, and then problem solve how we can do this locally, engage with folks and address issues. So I want to thank you all for your continued support. A lot of our work is not necessarily seen by the public or understood, but my team is out there helping folks and finding housing and preventing evictions and dealing with the crisis for families. So thank you again for your support, and happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Ms. Evans. You said lots of wonderful things for sure, but one of the things you did say was a lot of the work that you do is unseen or maybe not understood by the greater community. But there are a lot of people out there that need the precise type of assistance that you and your organization, your department are providing, and it goes unsung. I know the people that receive this assistance are, benefited from it, and I think the community is overall. And so I really want to thank the community for allowing us to support these initiatives because they're very helpful. So thank you, and thank your team for everything that they do. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Evans. As the mayor said, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and not everyone's aware of that work. So really appreciate you taking the opportunity to make as a council, we're aware of it, but it's important that the public's aware of all the work that's taking place. Just one question on because oftentimes I have people approach me and say, well, I'm concerned about during the cold weather, this person's unsheltered. So they just call Human Services, and somehow Roy tries to identify that individual.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we get calls every day, and if someone can describe where somebody is, then absolutely we'll go out, and sometimes we know who they are anyway out there. Right. And so again, it's a process that we're working with folks, and again, like now they're coming in a little bit more, right? They're checking in with us, or we're able to kind of work through some steps. So absolutely, we just take calls from the public for anybody that may have a need. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Every time you come and give a presentation, I think it's just so critically important for everyone to see the work that you and your team do. And as somebody who also has worked a lot with vulnerable populations, I think that sometimes it's hard to appreciate some of the little things that may look small that are huge. And so when you say, oh, somebody might look at that and say, oh, only 5 people got an ID, whereas that truly is a life-changing thing, and it's not easy. And that is the type of small thing that, even in small numbers in a town like ours, can really have the ripple effects of job stability, of housing stability, and of community stability. So I just want to elevate that about how nothing that you all do is small. And that's the life-changing work that you all are involved in, and I'm proud that our city supports that. But I did have 2 questions. One is, you mentioned the loss of the regional grant program, and can you explain like what that is and like why it's lost?
Yeah, it's a federal TANF grant
Okay.
that we've received for many, many years. And so it every year it kind of changes a little bit, and so at this point, it's not available.
Okay, okay. I figured it was something like that, but I just wanted to make sure I understood. And then the second thing was kind of riffing on the Vice Mayor's question too about community, either seeing a need or wanting to get involved, or how to call. But I saw things on there about bike donations or even the hygiene kits. So if somebody wants to donate something or contribute in some way, is the best thing to do to just call the Human Services Department?
Yep, and speak with somebody in our outreach team, yes.
Okay, because they're often, I think another thing is that in this community, we do have a lot of people who have a lot of energy to help, and they just don't know where to put it.
Right.
And so to know that perhaps like things can be accepted and help is needed and wanted is good, so.
Yeah, and we aren't the be-all, right? So,
Sure.
we work with the bike co-op, right? And so we have
Right.
vouchers, and so people do call us and say, hey, I have this to donate, or I have this skill, and so we can obviously link them with our partners too.
Yes, all right, well, thank you so much for all you do.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, just appreciate all that you and your team do very creatively, and without a lot of resources, it makes a big difference. So thank you.
Thank you. I also don't have any questions, but I really appreciated just you highlighting the information in the presentation, especially when it comes to the HOPE initiative and the just several programs that are going on. And I actually thought back to last month's meeting when we were discussing different housing solutions, and I think it's really just impressive, the overreach of thinking about everyone in our community, especially when we think of the pipeline to home ownership and having a place to stay. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Evans. Okay, takes us to item C, City Manager Report. Anything, Ms. DeWitt?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Shelton, anything with the Attorney's Report? All right. Takes us now to an open forum, which is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to come forward to speak. I do have a couple speakers' cards here, and I'll start with them, but then I will open it up after that. The first card I have is Justin Fisk. Yep. Would you like to come forward? If you'll just state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to about 5 minutes. Welcome. It's on.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you very much. First of all, good afternoon. I appreciate this moment. My name is Justice Kane Fisk. My current address is 260 Nino Lane, Williamsburg, Virginia. And again, I thank you for allowing me to speak. So my main topic that I would like to discuss for the local leaders is simply the matter of concerning immigration in our local city right now. And my main question starts with this. Currently, as we know, there are laws in place concerning immigrants, undocumented or otherwise. And I would like to ask, has the City Council taken the time to, by any chance, put forth or put in place, if anything, any type of protections concerning immigrants so far? Because as we've seen across the country, the federal level and the state level many have shown that they are not willing to follow these procedures concerning immigrants, especially since U.S. citizens who were born here are getting caught in the crossfire, being detained, being beaten, or even being killed. So my first question is just simply, have we taken the time to address this and put anything in place at all? And if not, do we have a plan to do that going forward? And another concern that has been brought up, first of all, I represent Virginia Organizing currently. We have worked with individuals concerning Social Security cuts because the BBB, as they call themselves, have made cuts to these And of course, these are very important things because many people live off of this. They use it to keep themselves afloat. They use it to get things that they cannot get without them. And so this will obviously be a big deal for them. So the question also goes, how can we keep social programs alive here in the local area? Because obviously, there's only so much we can do as far as local officials go. But change and protection always starts at the bottom, and it works its way up. So these are the main concerns that I have and that my organization has is security cuts and immigration protections. So that's all I really have to place in front of you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you.
Second speaker's card I have is Mr. Robert Wilson. Welcome.
Robert Wilson, 22 The Palisades. Good afternoon. The recent departure of the city manager provides an opportunity for the city to engage a fresh voice with new ideas for the future of our city. We can change the culture that has in recent years undermining clarity, accountability, and public trust, and introduce a climate of openness and transparency. The city should seek a new city manager from outside the current city staff. The city of Williamsburg has long stood as a symbol of representative governance, one in which public officials act in the best interests of the people they serve and not special interests. In recent years, the city has taken actions that have undermined transparency and public trust. Among them were threats of legal action against residents for displaying small yard signs expressing opposition to city proposed plans. More troubling, the city failed in its fundamental duties, the responsible management of essential public infrastructure. The water system, critical to the health and well-being of all residents, has not been properly maintained or updated. The city instigated a failed power play to separate the combined school system, resulting in higher costs to the city, and in the meantime, ignored the needs of underperforming students. And despite record increases in real estate assessments and revenues, the city continues to pile on debt and increases city staff faster than the increase in the city population. These actions reflect a broader pattern of governance that is neither open nor responsive to the community. When officials ignore residents' concerns, obscure vital information, and prioritize special interests over public welfare, they erode the foundational trust upon which effective local government depends. Hiring a new city manager and associated with these past decisions and with fresh ideas for the future of the city should be your priority. We need new leadership committed to transparency, integrity, and the people of Williamsburg. I have, a couple minutes left. I'll quickly address the issue with respect to the appropriation for the live music venue. Now, while the city had limited obligations to the Historic Triangle Regional Facilities Authority under a financing agreement and support agreement related to the regional sports facility, there are no such agreements in place for a live music venue. In fact, the HTRFA has no property under lease for such a facility. There's been no feasibility study or financial forecast, no presentations or financial plans, and the city's financial obligations for such a project are undetermined, and there's been no commitment by either James City County or York County to participate in such a venture, and no rezoning or other land use actions taken for such a project. These were all processes which you authorized, followed before you authorized expenditures for the regional sports facility. They are all processes which the city should observe before any appropriation expenditure of funds on this project as well. That's good governance. Thank you for your attention this afternoon.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Carrie Foldberg. Good afternoon. If you state your name and address for the record, keep your comments to about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Carrie Folberg, 7119 Patriots Colony Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to share during the open forum today. What I'd like to do with my few minutes is share how my experience volunteering in Williamsburg brought me here, respectfully ask you 2 questions, and then appeal for your support. My husband John and I moved to Williamsburg 4 years ago to help care for our aging parents who live at Patriots Colony. We started volunteering at Christian Outreach, Grove Christian Outreach Center soon after we moved here, and it has been a real privilege to serve alongside the people there as they consistently, joyfully, and respectfully, practically care for our neighbors, our Williamsburg neighbors there. And I don't know if you're aware of some of the things they do there, but one of the things that is I just love is that the food pantry is like, they've made it like a little store. So my husband and I are like shoppers. The neighbors come in and you walk with them and shop with them and you get to know them and their kids. And it's just been, and my husband also does food pickup at like Trader Joe's and other places like that. But it's just been a real joy to volunteer there. But in our time there, we have been able to see firsthand some of the impact of the recent things going on in our country nationally have had on our food insecure neighbors there. And just cuts have meant less food coming in, FDA cuts, and then the affordability issues we've had many more shoppers, clients attending there. And then, local businesses also feel the pinch with the inflation and other things going on economically. But honestly, as distressing as these things are, I think the thing that's been hardest for my husband and I are the policies regarding immigration. And I know we've just had a gentleman who's also with Virginia Organizing share. But for us, what's been very hard with our newfound friends that we have there is the fear that they live in. They are experiencing a lot of fear if they happen to be brown-skinned or Spanish-speaking neighbors. We know that, I think we all know that ICE can also bring in people who are documented. They bring in citizens. They can be people who are in the pipeline, and that neighbors are scared. They're scared. And so the fear is palpable. There was an article earlier this week in the Breeze about that. But because we became distressed at seeing what they were going through, we joined up with Virginia Organizing. And so together, we do things just like providing presents to our neighbors. We'll show up at a bus stop, where they've been known to be profiled. Or we're not going to interfere in any way. We would never do that. But we can stand alongside. We can document. So my two questions, but that's what brings me here today, is just this care for our neighbors and the fear that they're living in. So my two questions for you today is I was encouraged to hear that the city of Williamsburg, instructed local law enforcement to not necessarily work with ICE, that they would not work with them. And I just wanted to ask if that was accurate. And then ask, I'm not sure if you guys have a plan, whatever, to support our residents that are vulnerable to ICE. So those are my two questions. And then finally, just to appeal to you that Virginia Organizing has put together this flyer, both in Spanish and in English, and I can make it available to you. And all it does is provides for our immigrant neighbors what we have available here in Williamsburg, like the House of Mercy, Grove, St. Bede's, St. Olaf Food Pantry, Literacy for Life. It just lets them know what is available to them. And also that they can still, even though they might not be a citizen, they can avail themselves to help, or whether the police or the fire or things like that. So we were hoping, Virginia Organizing was hoping that we could get the city's support for this flyer, not asking you to distribute it or anything else, but these places that if the city of Williamsburg would put their logo on it or something to know, to help our neighbors know that while they might have to live in fear of their national government, they wouldn't have to live in fear of their local government. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? Dr. Cranville, welcome.
Well, a couple of very positive comments. First of all, When I got the announcement of the meeting, of course, there was no workshop, but I guess fine. But I saw that it had, in addition to where I could try to hit these buttons and pull up some documents, it had what's called the packet. I don't recall ever seeing that option in any previous meeting. And when I opened the packet, it was terrific. It had all of these records, documents, it had the minutes, it had everything right there, and all of the information, the presentation that's about to come up. I just want to ask the city council and to instruct our new wonderful, with whom we have huge confidence and hope, city manager, that this packet concept be included in all future announcements of the council meetings each month. And the second thing, having spent 8 or more years on the beautification committee, when I drove down Scotland Street to come here and saw all those tulips on the corner of Scotland and Richmond Road, it makes me really feel good about the staff of Jack, people who are working hard to make Williamsburg beautiful. So on going forward, I try to repress all of the anger and really upsetness I've had over the last 2 years over the police station, the library, and the total autocratic, non-transparent operation of the city. But I now see the real opportunity. It's 7 days since you made this rather huge decision, which gave great hope to the vast majority of everybody I know, that we can create an all-new environment like I believe all of you believe in, and because I feel you've actually been abused and used, to tell you the truth. So I feel sorry for you, but I know you will rise up and do better. So we're now in the middle of something that it's 7 days, as I wrote in my email. The train left the station before the transition. And so we're in this RFP. So, and then I learned some things yesterday, which I would have hoped would have been announced and everything like that. But again, the train left the station under previous leadership. What I'd like to urge is publicly that before any decisions are made, even evaluating with completion, that we have an opportunity for residents to suggest people who know, as I point out, people in our community who are very well versed in these kinds of requests that we're making, to have them have an opportunity working with whoever within the city structure is involved to participate in the evaluation process of the proposals. It's still not too late to allow time, because there's a rush to have this done in weeks or a month. I mean, it should be done going forward. But that we allow citizens, or you make it known that citizens can suggest people they'd like to be involved from the beginning of evaluating these proposals, and then leave it to city council and the city manager to evaluate whether these residents would indeed be very valuable because of their professional use and their expertise and so forth and background, to help in coming up with the top 3 or 2 or whatever proposals. And then I'm assuming that we'll have that involvement in the process, but I'm not interested in waiting for the process. I'm interested in getting citizens involved with a wide range of knowledge, and get residents involved in talking with you about people who should be part of the process before anything is made. And it seems to me that's totally doable. And then we start to move forward with what Mr. Wilson presented, and we could have had 50 people come up and make a similar talk, or more, a vast majority of everybody I know. So let's make this much more participatory and transparent, and let's support our new city manager with all the things that we'd like to see happen going forward. So I just ask that, if it's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the open forum and we'll move forward on the agenda to unfinished business, which there is none. Takes us to new business, and first is the consideration and action regarding the custodial services contract for the city of Williamsburg. Mr. Reed, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. We recently put out a request for proposal to solicit a firm to clean city buildings. That would include the municipal building, the fire department, police department, community building, Stryker, Transportation Center, and Quarter Path Recreation Center. The city received 12 responses. The list was reduced to 5 by eliminating those that didn't meet the criteria of the request for proposal. 5 remaining firms were interviewed by a panel of city staff that included members from Public Works, Parks and Rec, Police, and Fire to select a finalist. This finalist was selected based on price, references, and performance through the interview process, and the panel selected Brooks & Brooks Services, Inc. The initial contract would be for 1 year with 3 additional one-year renewal terms at the city's option. The cost of cleaning services for all buildings is projected to be $166,827.35. With City Council approval, the contract would commence April 1st, 2026. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, no questions, thank you.
No questions.
No questions, thank you.
Somebody like to make a motion?
Custodial services contract with Brooks & Brooks for custodial services for the term of April 1, 2026 through March 31, 2027, in the projected amount of $166,827.35.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay. Item B is consideration and action regarding the extension of a purchase order for the engineering design service to Whitman, Richard and Associates LLP for the Colonial Parkway Water Replacement Project. Welcome, sir. Jamie, how are you?
Doing good, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Pons, City Council members. I'm here before you because I need to request a authorization for purchase order for engineering design services to be procured to Whitman, Reckart and Associates, referred to as WRA, for the Colonial Parkline Waterline Replacement Project. With the assistance of Carl Chido of Winning Strategies, Washington, kind of full, who specializes in the grant writing and applications process, helped the city with the application to the Environmental Protection Agency, the Community Grants Program for funding for the project in April of 2024. Senators Mark Warner and Timothy Kane also were helpful in securing the funds for this grant program. The program is an 80% federal and 20% match program for the funding. $1,444,000 was allocated to the city through this 25 CDC government spending bill, and this allocation is for funding for both environmental design services and construction costs. Location of the project is adjacent to the Colonial Parkway, starting from the near Homicide Parkway, which is Route 199. It starts at the off-ramp and on-ramp for South Henry Street, travels about 4,000 linear feet north along the parkway, and at about that location, it'll go cross-country for about another 750 linear feet and towards the South England Street area. The existing water line is a 60-year 8-inch cast iron pipe that has been having problems experiencing leakages from the years and is at risk of contamination through infiltration of the pipe and is currently out of service. This water line is part of the city's distribution system that supplies drinking water to communities such as the Oaks, Port Anne, Richmond Hill, and the Coves. A new 12-inch ductile iron water line is proposed to replace the current 8-inch water line to provide constant water pressure and drinking water to the communities south of Mimosa Drive and provide a redundancy and a looped system for the customers in that part of the city. The new water line will also reduce the risk of risk of integrity to the Colonial Parkway roadway, which has recently undergone a replacement of the concrete surface along the roadway by the National Park Service. There is an existing agreement of a right-of-way encroachment between the city and the National Park Service and who maintains the parkway. We will be coordinating with the Chief Ranger for the Park Service when it comes time for permitting and construction. The estimated total cost for the project is $1,800,000, of which again $1,440,000 will be funded through the CDS grant program, and then the remaining $360,000 will be the city's contribution to the project. WRA is the consulting firm that Department of Public Works and Utilities decided to use and negotiate for engineering design services. This is through the annual services contract that we have currently between the city and WRA. Negotiations were concluded where WRA presented the Public Works and Utilities Department a scope of work services that included environmental investigation and permitting, survey services, geotechnical services, construction drawings and specifications, an opinion of probable costs construction, project management and support services, and bid and construction phase services. The total cost for the engineering design services by WRA is $269,452. WRA is available and ready to proceed with the work with the release of a purchase order and a notice to proceed. It is estimated to take about 12 months to complete the environmental, survey, geotechnical plans and specifications, and final construction documents, as well as any kind of permitting process necessary. Because the amount is over the $100,000 threshold for authorization, City Council is requested to authorize the interim city manager to execute a purchase order for the amount of $269,452 to WRA. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the project or the request for the purchase order.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Has this so this will be along the parkway, obviously. Has this portion of the parkway already been renovated?
The concrete surface has along this portion, correct.
So obviously, the work that we'll be doing, if approved, would be adjacent to the new construction.
Correct, it's adjacent, it's not underneath it yet. It's parallel to the roadway, but off the roadway itself in the grassed area.
Yeah.
Probably, I think it's approximately 10 to 15 feet off of the actual concrete surface.
Too bad we couldn't have coordinated the timing of all
Sure.
that to lessen the impact on the travelers on that road. Well, I think it's outstanding that our senators were able to help us achieve such a large grant to cover a large portion of this. And I believe the funds that we have set aside have already been put in our CIP. So this has been in the planning process, and I know Mr. Witt has worked with our legislative body to help get senators on board with this. So thank you for that. I don't have any other questions, and thank you for bringing this forward. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Clark. No questions. The mayor asked the question. I was concerned about the new pavement on the parkway, and I was assuming it was not going to impact that since you kept using the word adjacent to.
Correct, yes.
So I'm glad to hear it's not going to affect that new roadway.
Ms. Crenshaw?
Hi, yes, thank you. So I just had a great adjacent, not going to tear up the parkway again. Nobody wants that. You said that our portion is 300 and, what did you say, 360
$60,000.
for design and construction, right there. And then the design services at 269. So is that 269 like part of the 360? I'm trying to figure out.
So our portion for the total project is $360,000. So what will happen is we request reimbursements.
Okay.
So once we get, this will be we will be on the hook, I had to say it that way. We will be using our funding for the 269 and whatever's left over, again, our portion, and then everything beyond that will be reimbursable requested.
Great. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. I have no questions. I know we've been waiting for this funding to come through for quite a while, so appreciate that. Now we're ready to start allocating it.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I had a quick question. Out of curiosity, when was the last time the water line was replaced?
It was never replaced. It was put in 60 years ago, and then this is the first time we're actually having to do the replacement for this particular line. Because of the issues of leakage, cast iron is, again, not a very, over the time of years, cast iron does become a material that is not very well liking this in the in the ground sometimes, depending on the chemistry of the earth. So we've been experiencing leakages along this particular portion, and we've had to take it out of service currently. So we still be able to service all the communities from the north side, but typically water distribution systems work best when it's looped. So yeah, this is the original, and we're replacing it with the new pipe.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for all the work that you've done thus far.
So I move that City Council authorize the interim city manager to execute a purchase order to Whitman, Reckart and Associates LLP, WRA, for the Colonial Parkway Waterline Improvements Project for $269,452 based on a lump sum price for engineering design services.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McKay.
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next on the agenda is consideration and authorization for the interim city manager to execute a one-year contract on an emergency basis for the FY 2026 external audit and related services for the city, its components units of the Williamsburg Economic Development Authority and the Williamsburg Redevelopment Housing Authority, and the entities for which the city serves as a physical agent, the Williamsburg Regional Library and the Historic Triangle Recreational Facilities Alliance. Ms. Dameron.
Yes, as we began looking at the 2015 contract with our current auditors, it required a lot of updates to that. It was somewhat updated. It became apparent that it was going to take a while to produce an RFP that would be a quality RFP and something that would not be issued so last minute that any contract would be issuing us at risk because they wouldn't have time to come in should it be a new auditor and do the analysis that they need to do. And so, given that time frame, at best, we'd probably be looking at May to June before we could have proposals back and think about issuing something. Typically, we have the auditors in and start preliminary groundwork in April and May. In addition to that, we have 2 GASBs to implement. GASB 103 is probably the most significant. It will change the financial reporting. In addition to requiring more analysis, reaching out to departments to understand underlying reasons why, we will also have to rework some of 25. In addition, that GASB will require that we report on additional subsequent events than we're required to now. So we'll, in essence, be looking out to the future, not just the year ending. So with that in mind and meeting our deadline requirements both for the APA to have an auditor contract and our requirements for financial reporting, we're asking that we issue a contract for 1 more year with Robertson Farmer Cox, our existing auditors. They are agreeable to that. The contract would be for including all the entities, $140,855. It is a bit of an increase because in addition to the additional work that city staff has to do to implement GASB 103 and 104, it requires more work on their end as well. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Well, thank you, Ms. Dameron. And obviously, we've been talking about this for some time, and I think your assessment of not rushing into, a new contract. Let's take the time to make sure that we put out an RFP that addresses the concerns and issues and ultimately delivers a product that is beneficial to us. So I certainly support taking this one-year extension so that we can move forward more purposefully. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amron. Just, thank you for your explanation, because I think there was, at least some people I've talked to in the community, there's a misunderstanding about emergency services, like this is an audit that's outside of our normal audit, but this is just emergency basis to meet that stipulation that we have a contract by April 1.
Correct.
Doesn't change
It's our
anything
n-
else about our normal audit on an annual basis.
It's our normal audit, and we will issue an RFP, but that RFP will be for FY '27.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I don't have any questions. They've been addressed as to why this is an emergency and what that means. And also, I just want to note that I thought that the explanation in the agenda packet was very helpful to understand as well. So if members of the community are still a little hazy on what this means, what this is, I think that the agenda packet did a very good explanation. So thank you. I imagine that you had something to do with that too. So
Thank you. I have no questions.
Ms. Williams?
Thank you. I also don't have any questions. They've all been addressed.
Somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the interim city manager to execute a one-year contract with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates for the fiscal year 2026 external audit and related services totaling $140,855.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, next is consideration and action regarding the proposed resolution number 26-03, authorizing the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds in an agreement amount not to exceed $11 million and providing for the form and details thereof. Ms. DeWitt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In June of 2025, we issued $11 million of, and the experts are moving up to the podium. I'll just get us started. General obligation bonds for the police station and public works facilities. We knew all along that we'd be looking to our financial advisors, Davenport, to see if we could get a better rate on this issuance. This does not change the maturity date. And we had received news from Davenport last night that they'd received the bids, and they have very nice news to share with you about a rate. So this is David Rose and Tyler Smith.
Thank you, Ms. DeWitt. Again, Mayor, members of council, Tyler Smith is handing out a presentation that he's actually going to give. But just to piggyback on what the interim city manager said, you may recall when we were at your retreat just a few weeks ago, you gave us that ability to move forward, and we said if things work out, delighted to say they worked out more than we had expected. So this will be a fairly brief discussion. But I just want to point out for the citizens, we're not talking about issuing any new debt here, and we're not talking about extending the final maturity. The reason we came to you about this was, again, as Ms. DeWitt said, number one, to certainly save money if possible by virtue of lowering an interest rate that right now is fixed at 4.59%. But even though it goes out to 2051, the rate will have to be reset in 2034. What we've been able to procure is an interest rate that will go through out to 2051 with no necessary requirements to have that reset, only if we want to reset, we meaning the city. So with that said, Tyler is going to walk you through these pages, and it should be, I think, up on the screen. Is that, it's not, Barbara? Okay, but I will say we certainly can get this to anyone of the citizens because in form of transparency, full disclosure, we want people to know about this. So I'll stop there. Okay.
Thank you.
Tyler.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon. Tyler Smith with Davenport. Again, I'll reference a few pages of the hard copy I just handed out to you all to follow along. But as David mentioned, just a brief summary of the RFP process we went through attempting to refund this outstanding bond for the city. So starting with page 2, shortly after the council retreat last month, we distributed a request for proposals out to our banking network, which consists of over roughly 100 different banking institutions, regional, local, and national. Just on Tuesday, earlier this week, March 10th, we received 8 bids from different banks. And on that page that you can see there, beneath that bullet point, we have listed out the 8 different responding banks. And across those banks, we got some very strong results. And it's a nice mix of large and national banks that we're accustomed to seeing. And then we also have some smaller regional and local banks also responding, which this level of interest in the 8 proposals that you all received in total is really a reflection of how strong the city's finances are and how the banking institutions view the credit of the city. And out of these 8 proposals, there were multiple that were very strong and provided good outcomes for the city. But with that said, we do want to highlight one proposal in particular, which is Atlantic Union Bank's. Atlantic Union Bank, some of their highlights from their bid, the key terms that they submitted. The interest rate, like David mentioned earlier, is fixed through maturity, is fixed at 3.74%. So materially lower than the current rate of 4.59 outstanding. The term is 25 years, which matches with the same term that the 2023 bond currently has. And lastly, one of the most important key terms that we look at when considering bank proposals is the prepayment flexibility and the prepayment provisions. And Atlantic Union's bid offers us the most flexibility that is out there, which is prepayable at any time at par with no associated penalty. And the last point just to make on this page is Atlantic Union's proposal has an acceptance date of March 20th, which is next Friday, and as long as we get back to them with the signed copy of the term sheet, they're willing to hold this rate of 3.74 through closing, which is expected to occur in the next month or so. On page 2, we have a simple comparison of the estimated savings generated from the Atlantic Union proposal, as well as the Virginia Resources Authority. And for the Virginia Resources Authority, this is a current market estimate based on rates as of Tuesday this week. For the Atlantic Union proposal, you can see that we are now generating over $1 million of savings based on their bid of 374, which equates to over 7.5% on a present value basis. And if we were to rewind back to a month or so ago when we were at the council retreat, back then our estimate was roughly half of what we're seeing here. To David's point earlier, that we've exceeded the expectations that we went out there with, and the banking networks got back to us with very strong results, which generates this level of over $1 million of savings. On the Virginia Resources Authority side, still a very positive outcome there. If we had to go down that route, gross savings are about $425,000, a little bit more than that, and on a present value basis, right at 4%. And one important note to make about this comparison here is that the Atlantic Union proposal, like I mentioned briefly before, this rate of 374 is firm and locked through the closing date. Whereas the Virginia Resources Authority scenario, those rates are subject to change up until the bond pricing date, which the authority currently has scheduled for late April, I believe. So up until that point, the rates could change and we would not lock in the final terms and the interest rates until that point in time. And then wrapping up on page 4, just a few observations and including our recommendation. Just to reiterate my point from earlier, the city receiving a total of 8 proposals really indicates that the financial markets feel strongly about how fiscally sound and stable the city is and what an excellent credit it truly is. And for our recommendation, we recommend that the city consider moving forward with Atlantic Union's proposal for a few different reasons. First, the very favorable interest rate. That rate of 374 is fixed for the entire 25-year term, which is not the case for all the proposals that we received. So there's no rate reset, put, or tender concepts included with that. Second point would be the annual payments. These annual debt service payments are well below what we had included in the planning estimates just back last month at the council retreat. As I mentioned earlier, last month we were showing around maybe $600,000 of savings based on those current estimates. Now we're showing over $1 million of savings with Atlantic Union's proposal. And just to point out, the savings that we're talking about here do account for the cost of issuance of all the different parties that are involved in the issuance process itself. So those are true numbers that you're seeing there, and we wouldn't be taking out of those savings to pay for more cost of issuance. And then lastly, the prepayment provisions that I mentioned earlier. The bank loan can be prepaid at any time in whole or in part, meaning no penalty to the city if it wanted to refinance this sometime down the road. And comparing that to a VRA or Virginia Resources Authority issuance, their programs typically have a 10-year lockout period when it comes to the prepayment provisions, meaning after the bonds are issued, you typically cannot refinance that debt until 10 years later. At that point in time, 10 plus years down the road, you could potentially refund it if the market conditions allowed for it. However, with this bank loan, we could refund this at any time before that 10-year period. And then the last point to make on this page, the additional considerations, credit approval. So the Atlantic Union proposal is still subject to final credit approval by the bank. However, this is a very common practice that we see with these bank loans across the board, and it's really just a formality in most cases, and we've followed up with Atlantic Union and confirmed that they don't foresee any issues or concerns with the final credit approval since the city is such a strong credit.
I just want to make two comments for the citizens since it's not on the screen. The actual savings that's locked in here is $1,104,623. So it's well over $1 million. The second point here is we look at, people might say, well, what's the basis that you think it's worthwhile to do a refunding? Are you not just churning financings? So we have a concept called present value savings percentage. General practices in our industry, statewide, countrywide, anything above 3% present value savings is considered a worthwhile, viable savings. It's like an APR on a car. It is after all the costs are factored in. So for us here, we are talking about a present value savings of 7.52%, more than twice the level of what's considered a bona fide best practices refunding. So again, and then with regard to the VRA, that's basically at 4%. But again, as Tyler said, that can come and go depending upon what the markets are like late April. So we very much recommend the Atlantic Union Bank approach. Somewhat surprised that they're willing to lock in for 25 years and being so aggressive. But, you know, we're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. If they want to do that, we're good. So hopefully y'all are good too. Thank you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. No, I think this is good news. You know, we look at the current lending and the future date of 2035 and knowing that we're going to have to refinance or pay a higher interest rate or maybe a potentially lower rate, that provides some uncertainty that if we do this, takes that off the table. And I think that's, you know, a great idea. We're lowering our interest rate from what we're paying on our current debt. That's obviously a positive. And as you point out, the very notion that they would be willing to lock in for 25 years without any prepayment, meaning a future council could decide to refinance, pay it off, or do whatever they may deem important at the time, I think is amazing.
It is.
Offer here. So
Again, banks, they're constantly changing in terms of whether they're aggressive or not, and they clearly have decided this is the marketplace they want to be in, at least at this moment. Again, point out, we don't have formal credit approval. You know, we are in the middle of a war, and they have that ability to make some changes or to pull out. They can do those things, and we've had that happen before, so I just want to make sure everyone realizes that. But if they do, and hopefully they don't, then again, we're not obligated to anything either in terms of costs or what have you, and just keep that in mind. Again, the last point I would make here is that for a lot of folks, they may say, well, you know, we don't see rates being that good right now, especially on mortgages. Well, that's the world of the taxable market. That's how all of us have to borrow money. But when it's the tax exempt world, like this, or Colonial Williamsburg, or James City County, the marketplace is quite favorable right now. And with the exception, frankly, of that short period of time after COVID, when we saw rates drop to unfathomable levels of 2%, in that range, this is really in and around 40 to 50-year lows of interest rates. So that's where we're trending. And as you know, we have to do a takeout of our existing debt. That timing looks for the moment as if that's going to be a very good timing as well. It's going to be a couple months from now still, but again, we're moving hopefully in the right direction there, and feel good about it.
Well,
So,
this is good news, so thank you for bringing
Thank
this
you.
forward.
All right.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you for the work you did on behalf of the city, and as you've mentioned several times at the budget retreat and everything that's taken place in the world since then, I wouldn't have expected to see this kind of rate come back, especially locked in for 25 years. We're not changing maturity date, it's not any new money, but to save us $1.1 million is in the best interest of the city for sure. So thank you.
Yes, thank you both for the information and presentation and for the clarifying explanations on many things. So I appreciate all your work.
thank you.
Yes, I would agree. It's all good news, and thank you for your efforts on behalf of the city. Very well appreciated.
Yes, thank you both for bringing this forward, especially when we look at the gross savings and, as you pointed out, the present value savings percentage being almost double.
It's
of
more than
what-
double.
Yes, more than
More than
double,
double,
than what is considered to be worthwhile. So thank you for all the work that you both did.
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 26-03 to authorize the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $11 million with Atlantic Union Bank, and authorize the city manager and finance director to execute all the necessary documents for this transaction.
Second?
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay. Takes us now to item E, consideration and action of proposed ordinance 26-01 to amend Chapter 18, Article 10 of Division 2, Section 18-381 regarding B-poll rates and vendor special events. Ms. Shelton.
Commissioner of the Revenue Cash Earhart is going to speak to council on this matter.
You don't have to run, sir. Welcome to your first presentation at City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate
You're going to
the,
say, here,
no, not today. I appreciate the consideration. I try not to even run from burning buildings if I can help it. So. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Madam Councilors. I have a recommendation for your consideration to amend Chapter 18, Article 10, Division 2, Section 18-381 regarding B-poll rates for vendors at special events. At present, our city code mandates a $500 fee or fine for a special event vendor license. That would be for art festivals, Christmas market, Second Sundays, Occasion for the Arts, things of that nature. Our other B-poll rates for vendors in the city are calculated at 20 cents per $100 with a minimum fee of $30 per vendor. To require the special event vendors to pay a minimum of the current $500, parity for that for a local vendor would mean they're doing $250,000 worth of sales in the city. That's a lot of cutting boards. So we're looking to bring some parity to what we are charging the special event vendors for other retailers licensed in the city. Again, this is only for special event vendors at city-sponsored events. They've got to get their event license first, which our partner organizers for the events so far have already stepped up to make sure that their client vendors are in compliance with the city code. It is the recommendation of your Commissioner of the Revenue that we amend the city code to set a B-poll rate for vendors at city licensed special events of no less than $30, allowing for if somebody has a gangbuster year's worth of sales, there would be a higher rate charged for renewing their business license, since it's estimated off of the gross annual receipts. I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any questions, Mr. Vice Mayor.
No questions.
No questions.
No, seems to make common sense to me.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a motion?
So I move that City Council adopt proposed ordinance 26-01.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher? Aye.
Okay, leads us to item F, consideration and appointment to boards and commission members. Have any there, Mr.?
Yes. I move to appoint Michelle DeWitt to the Colonial Community Criminal Justice Board to fill an unexpired term ending June 30, 2027, and to the Williamsburg Regional Library Board of Trustees to fill an unexpired term ending June 30, 2026.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher? Aye.
And I have some mayoral council and staff appointments. Poor Michelle's got more to do. So I appoint Michelle DeWitt to the following committees to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2026. First is the Eastern Regional Industrial Facilities Authority. Second, the Hampton Roads Mayors and Chairs. Third, the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission Executive Committee. The Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization, ex officio. Virginia First Cities, and Virginia Peninsula Public Service Authority and School Liaison, and Virginia Peninsula Regional Jail Authority. We will also appoint Ms. DeWitt to the Quarter Path Community Development Authority to fill an unexpired term ending July 31st, 2027, and appoint Brian Twitty to the Eastern Virginia Regional Industrial Facilities Authority as the Economic Development Authority representative to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st. I don't know if we need a motion. Those are just my appointments, but thank you for agreeing, Bart. Okay, so that's done. I believe we do have some closed session, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I move to go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussing the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of the terms of scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body per subparagraph 29 regarding a consultant.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay. We will go into closed session and return into open session and adjourn the meeting then. Thank you all. First back in open session.
I move to approve the certification of a closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia.
Second?
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
We're adjourned.